Hi, olá a todos e todas. Boa tarde, né? Nós estamos aqui novamente para realizar nossas conferências internacionais. A intenção é a gente trazer alguns convidados para falar de temas que são importantes, né, para o nosso grupo de pesquisa, mas também temas que estejam relacionados ao contexto geral, né? Essa iniciativa é uma iniciativa do Programa de Pós-Graduação em Educação Física da Universidade de Brasília. E hoje nós vamos ter o professor Dietmar Wetzel. Dietmar é professor, sociólogo e antropólogo. Ele é especialista na literatura e história da Alemanha moderna. Ele trabalhou sua dissertação sobre os discursos da política entre a reconstrução e a desconstrução, utilizando um autor, William Fink. Ao mesmo tempo, ele foi graduado pela Universidade de Friburgo com o diploma no Centro de Francês. Ele seguiu estudando Sigmund Freud, nos seus estudos no Instituto de Frankfurt. E ele tem trabalhado com sociologia da competição atualmente. Ele defendeu sua tese de doutorado, sobre esse tema da sociologia da competição na Universidade de Berna, que foi entre 2007 e 2000. E ele trabalhou na Universidade de Berna entre 2007 e 2013. Depois ele teve uma bolsa de pós-doutorado na Universidade de Schiller, em Jena. Jena foi a cidade onde, salvo engano, o Hegel, aquele autor filósofo, viveu, né? E ele foi coordenador do Centro de Pesquisa Internacional sobre a questão ética nas ciências de 2014 a 2016. Em paralelo, ele foi co-coordenador de um projeto que chama Sinergia, sobre uma nova comunidade ou formas comunitárias e autenticidade. Ele trabalha atualmente como professor, né? Vocês sabem que na Europa tem uma divisão entre pesquisador e professor, né? Alguns são professores, alguns são professores e pesquisadores. Geralmente, quando é lecture, é professor, porque dá aula, né? Então, ele é um lecture. Ele é um lecture na Universidade de... ele foi lecture na Universidade de Basel, que fica na Suíça, né? E, atualmente, o professor está na Universidade de Hamburgo, no Departamento de Economia Social, e tem uma bolsa de pesquisa de ciências sociais na Escola de Medicina, tá? Então, em resumo, esse é o currículo do professor Dietmar, aqui traduzido para vocês, né? O professor Dietmar Wetzel vai falar em inglês, né? Eu pedi para ele falar devagar e para a gente poder compreender melhor o que ele está falando. A ideia é que ele fale entre 20 e 30 minutos no máximo. Na sequência, a gente vai fazer algumas perguntas, né? Não muitas, para também não ficar cansativo. E é isso, espero que a gente tenha uma boa tarde de conversa, de diálogo, né? E que o professor vai estar partilhando com a gente nesse momento, né? Então, thank you so much for your acceptation, Dietmar. Welcome to our group. We are from Brazil University. Here we have PhD students and master students and some professors also. We are to intend to have a good conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
After your presentation, we have some questions to discuss about what happened in our context nowadays. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation and for the possibility to share some ideas and some thoughts about the current situation. And yes, I hope that I could be clear. I will speak slowly, not so fast, so that you can hopefully understand everything. And unfortunately, I do not speak Portuguese or do not speak Spanish. Maybe you can speak Spanish as well, but I speak English, German, French. French is also okay, but okay, we do it in English, and Dulce can translate if it's not too clear.
I need help sometimes. We have some people in our group that speak in English also.
Okay.
So if I can understand, I need help. I need my students.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So then I start with my presentation. It's okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I hope you can see everything. You can see my presentation. I will talk in the next minutes. I think I need maybe 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more, but I don't want to speak too long because it's not so easy to follow if I tell you too many things. And I hope we can have a discussion at the end, and we can have a dialogue. And I'm very interested in what you say about the current situation, because I suggested to talk about the pandemic situation in each nation, and in Germany, maybe in Switzerland also, because I live actually in Switzerland, but I work in Germany. And I'm not an expert in the situation, what's going on in Brazil, of course. You are, I think, experts, and so we can learn from each other, I hope. And yeah, I try to do it, as it mentioned in my title, I try to do it as a sociologist, and I try a little bit to analyze the current situation. So this is my task for the next minutes, and we'll see, and I hope you can have some insights from what I'm talking about in the next minutes. So let's start. So a short overview. My plan is, after a short introduction, I will tell you something about the current situation here in Germany with regard to the pandemic situation here. And I try to give you some explanation in the next point from a more sociological point of view. And I also can tell you something about, hopefully, about the Brazilian situation from an external perspective. Because I have some media impressions here in Europe, because Europe is, of course, interested in the situation, what's going on in South America, what's going on in Brazil, and so on. And I think this could be very interesting, and yes, I have some ideas. And I will conclude with some hypotheses, which I will present, and maybe we can talk about them, or we can have a discussion on other points. We'll see. And I also have some questions for you, if it's possible. I have some questions which I have also on my presentation, and yeah, we'll see what's happening the next couple of minutes. So this is my plan. Yeah, what can I say to start? In March, as you may know, the coronavirus started to break out in Europe. So we had really problems in Central Europe, and maybe you can see on the map here. You can see in between it's Switzerland. The small thing is Switzerland, and we had a lockdown in Switzerland and in Germany around the 5th of March. And so the coronavirus was very striking and was very hard to come here in Switzerland and also in Germany, because I travel between two countries. And we have also a very difficult situation in Italy. Yeah, as you may know, in Italy and in Spain, it was very hard. So to follow what happens in our neighbor country, because we are in the north of Italy. So this is how it started. And then if you look at the situation a little later, in end of May, now the virus has enveloped, as it is said, the whole world. So in the beginning, we didn't know much about the situation in the US and not so much about South America, but now we know, and also about Russia. We didn't know a lot, but as you can see the numbers, and you know the numbers, they are even higher now. I know they are even higher now, almost 2 million in the USA, and I think 500,000 in the Soviet Union. And in Brazil, it's also increasing, as I know. And yes, so this is the situation. The virus, I think, it's a good title, has enveloped the world. Yeah, it started to embrace the world, not in a good way. So the question was, in Germany and also in Switzerland, should we have a complete lockdown? Should we have complete lockdowns or only partially? Maybe it's the same discussion in Brazil. Must everything be closed, or is it better to leave some things open? Can we go to the restaurants? Shall we go to the supermarkets? Yes, no. It was the question here, and we had also an ongoing discussion about masks or no masks. Maybe it's also interesting for me to know what you think about this point, about the mask and so, and this could be an interesting point. And we had a slightly reopening end of May. So I think the worst month were in March and in April. And it started again in the end of May. And now we have an opening of the borders in the European Union since 15th June. So we can travel. We have the possibility to travel. I have the possibility to go in July to Hamburg, to my university, and to see the students. I didn't see them for many months. But and it's a great, but currently we have also regional hotspots. This means that Corona is not away, it's not gone. So we have regional hotspots, and we have to be careful, because there are slightly rising numbers in Germany and very slightly rising numbers in Switzerland. So we must take this under control. I would like to say something about my sociological observations in the pandemic. I think, and this would be also an interesting point for discussion, many people here in Europe, also in Switzerland and in Germany, they are rather tired of the pandemic, which means they don't want to follow the restrictions. They are frustrated, and I think it's the hyper individualism here, and also the strong belief in liberalism and our own liberty, which means that they don't want to follow the restriction, as I said before, and they actually want to do what they want to do. So they are not so carefully and so on. So I think really this is an observation I made the last weeks. The people are becoming tired of the pandemic, and they think it's over, but it's not. The other point is that many people believe in conspiracy theories. So there are many wild conspiracy theories around, and where does it come from, the corona? Is it from the laboratories? Are the animals guilty? And so maybe you have the same discussions in Brazil. And the social media and the World Wide Web support this tendency to conspiracy theories very much. And I find it rather a dangerous situation here, because we have also populism from the right. And they try to use these conspiracy theories for their own ideas, for their own things. And I think this could be a rather dangerous situation for the democracy we have here in Europe. So we will see in the future what's happening. And as I said before, the pandemic is arising again, and we see in this situation that the power of the government and the medical experts, they really try to regulate COVID-19. They have really strong power, but also there is, I think, a rather big risk of abuse of the power. So we have to control. Democracy has to control the government and the medical experts, I think. So because if you don't do that, there could be room for authoritarian leaders and so on, So I think what we will see in the future is a rather flexible management of the corona crisis. It's the need of a flexible management, not a strict or not a hard management. I think it's a flexible management. And I think that we are a little bit privileged here in Switzerland, because we have here a small country. And it's easier to handle than in a big country like US or Brazil or Russia. So here it works rather well if the government says, yeah, you have to do that and that, and that you don't have to do. So I think really that the small countries have a little bit advantages in this point. So I think that from a sociological point of view, we are now, we are part of a crisis experiment, which we know from Harold Garfinkel. And I think because we have many things which happen now in the crisis beyond normality. And the restrictions are everywhere, and the flashbacks are sometimes also there. And I think this is also a kind of return of the dream of the social techniques, which we had in the 1970s. Are we really able to manage? Are we the engineers of the country? Can we, as sociologists and politicians and politics, can we regulate a whole country? Is this possible or not? I think it's an important question and not easy to answer, I know. But we have to think about it, which is, in fact, the best political form to handle and to deal with the crisis. Is it democracy? Yes. And which kind of democracy, which we need to handle this? Or can we go to a more authoritative leadership in China, for example? And I think also almost in Brazil, we have something in between. we can discuss later, I think. But I think it's really important to think about the political form, which is the best to handle and to deal with the crisis. It's not so clear, I think. And I have also, as a sociologist, I have a feeling of ambivalence regarding the crisis all over the world. And I think it's good and also bad times for sociologists. Why are there good and bad times? I think good times are there because we have so many data about the population which is gathered now, which is collected. We have so many information, data, and this is for us sociologists, almost for the quantitative sociologists, it's a dream, I think, because they can have so many data and information. But we also have on the other side the discussions about the usefulness of an app, of the Corona tracing app, which is currently here under they start with the Corona app here in Switzerland and in Germany the last days, and there's really a discussion: do we need this? Is it helpful? Which kind of data is collected? Is it okay to have these data? And yes, from a social, philosophical, and sociological point of view, I was reminded of Foucault and Deleuze. You may know these authors, yeah? They are rather famous. And Foucault talked about discipline and punishment, yes? And I think this is now what we can see in many countries. We have to be disciplined, and we also will be punished if we don't follow what is said. So you have a strong state, a strong politics, which take you under control. And this is also what Deleuze said in the 1990s, 20 or almost 30 years ago. We are living now in control societies. And I think he was absolutely right, because everything now is under control. And the best example for this is the situation in China. The social credit system. The social credit system, which is very important and which almost started in China, I think, this or next year. And if you are not a good fellow, if you're not a good man or a good woman, you will not get the credits, and you will lose your credits, and you will lose friends, you will maybe lose your job. So you have all to do to be part of this social credit system and to have an amount of many credit points. Yeah, and I think this is a control system, which is now, with the Corona situation, even worse, even getting worse. So yes, and now this was almost my part on this sociological point of view. I think what I would go to the fourth point, the Brazilian situation from an outside perspective, because I only have informations about Brazil or other countries which are far away from here, from Europe, through media. So I'm looking currently in newspapers in Germany and Switzerland. Maybe you know them, in international newspapers, Süddeutsche, Frankfurter, Neue Zürcher Zeitung there. And I get information from these newspaper articles, and my overall impression is that it's a very bad situation in Brazil now. And it's hard to handle, and almost everyone, but of course, poor people are suffering a lot in the Corona pandemic. And I also heard and also read that the medical situation sometimes is not so good. It's rather catastrophic. And if we go to the politics, to the political side, Bolsonaro makes it not better. He makes it worse. So this is how it is observed here in Switzerland and in Germany. I think every newspaper is against him, and he said, "Oh, how could he be the president?" Okay, this is not my personal point, my personal view, but it's the view of the newspapers. But I think it would be interesting to think about the fantasies which are behind these politics. So is there a plan, I would ask, a kind of regulatory dream to get rid of the poor people in Brazil? Is there a plan, or is it something which he takes for granted? He says, okay, if it happens, then it happens, and it's rather cynic, I think, yeah. This is how it is observed from our external point of view, and I think also the corruption of the government is very clear, and I think it's not so easy to follow, yeah, what they really do, and to accept what they do. But of course, maybe you can tell me later a little bit more about this, I think, difficult situation which we see in Brazil, and also in the points of politics. So this is my impression. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can correct me after. It would be interesting to hear from your more empirical perspective and more own experience.
I think you are right.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see. So I come to my hypothesis, to things. I said it. I named it things that matter. I think politics matter. As I talked before, I think politics matter. Authoritarian leaders, although they are named democracies, Putin and Trump, they live in democracies, but is this still a democracy? Or Bolsonaro, is it still a democracy, or something else? Is it something between authoritarian leadership and democracy? I think, yeah, we have here in Switzerland and Germany, we have democratic government, we have direct democracy. This helps, I think, in the crisis, but it's not enough, as we could see, because we have a strong need here for medical supplies and good concepts, not God concepts, good concepts of prevention. Yeah, we must have good concepts of prevention. And in Europe, we had some countries, as I mentioned before, with high rates and big problems in Italy and Spain. And they were very strongly infected by the corona. And on the other side, we had, I would say, better governance and a better management in Germany and in Switzerland. Because, and why is it so? Because these countries are rich, of course, and they are highly privileged countries. So they have very good medical supplies. They have a good system which works, a good medical system. So even in Europe, you can have differences and inequalities between the countries and in the countries. So my next point is inequality matters. Why? Because you have a very strong effect between the countries, as I said before, and in the countries regarding inequality. Poor people and badly educated people suffer the most from the corona crisis. I think it's fact. It's a fact, and we see it all over the world, and we see it also. We see it in Germany. I think in Brazil it's obvious if I trust the information I have about this, and I think there's a strong need for more medical education and participation of the socially, economically, and politically excluded people. How can we achieve that? How can we have more participation, more political representation, and also more medical education of the people, of all kinds of people, not only the rich, not only the middle classes. They need it also, of course, but also the poor, I think they need it very, very strongly and very, very, very hardly. So we have a very complex situation, I think, in regard of inequality. And we have no simple answers about that. And maybe we can discuss about equality also in times of Corona. I think Corona showed us that our world is divided, and it's very divided in not only in poor and rich, but it's also divided in the people who have positive effects and people who have negative effects of the crisis. So I think it's a fact. So politics matters and equality matters. And medical equipment is my third point, and prevention, they matter of course, I mentioned it a little bit before. We had, and this was an interesting point to observe as a sociologist, we had a lack of masks in the beginning of the crisis in Switzerland, but nobody was told. The government didn't tell us that there is a lack of masks. And in Germany was the same. So they had to buy it out, from other countries, from China and so on. And the goal is now that they say, oh, we won't be dependent from foreign countries. So we have to use our own possibilities, and we want to be dependent of foreign supply chains. This is not good, because they can say, no, we have no masks. So I think it was a really interesting point. Even in rich countries, they are dependent from other countries, which can give us masks, or they can say, no, we don't have masks, sorry. We use it for our own. So I think also that the flexible response is necessary. It's flexible answers. We need flexible answers. There's not an answer for everything and every country. It's flexible response. This is an important point, I think. And also we need a constant surveillance of the development. Not only the medicals, but also the politics. And we as scientists, we have to constantly control and make a surveillance of the development of the crisis. I think it's very important to be part of that, and not only to say, yes, the politics, they make it, or the government, they will handle it. Yes, they will, but we have to control them. And also the democracy, the normal people have to control what is going on. Because if not, we have authoritarian state. My fourth point, I think enlightenment and emancipation also matter. It's a very important point, because, it's evident, I think, that the enlightenment and the education for the people is very, very important to have some good arguments against all kinds of conspiracy theories. So the people are armed with good arguments, and they can say, no, what you are telling me is bullshit. What Trump often says is not right. He's doing bullshit. And so we need a good enlightenment and a good education from the schools, from the universities. It's our job to give them good education and good enlightenment, to have good arguments against conspiracy theories. I think it's very important, because if not, they will take control, and then we have really big problems. So I would like to say that we as scientists and sociologists, we have to do, and we must do the following things. We have to recognize that emotions and affects, I didn't talk about that point, but I think it's important. It came to my mind as I prepared it. Emotions and affects related to Corona pandemic it's a very important point to recognize them. We have to recognize that people have fear, and they are not only fear, they also have rage and pain and so on. And I think it's very important to recognize it, and not to say, oh no, there's no problem, it's easy, no problem, we overcome this. No, they have emotions and affects, and we have to take them into granted, and we have to take them into our analysis, I think. And we have to struggle again against conspiracy and for truth and reality, for common reality. I think it's very important to have an intersubjective truth and a constructed social reality. So we have no comeback of radical constructivism, which we had in scientists and in science discussions. The radical constructivism, everybody lives in his own world, and I live in my own world, you live in your own world, so we cannot correspond. And I think this is not true. We can correspond, and we can talk to each other, and we must talk to each other, and we have to build a common and a social reality. And also we need our job to do online teaching and coaching of the students and of the people which need education until we can meet again, of course. Yes, it's better to meet them. It's better to have them right before in the classes. But if not, it's important to have online teaching and coaching And I think it's the point we can do as scientists and sociologists. So this was my presentation, and I have some questions. Shall I edit?
For us?
So as you can read it, I mentioned you. Now you are the experts. You can tell me something about the situation which you are now have in your country and in your village or in your city. And yeah, I'm interested in the following things, but also in other things. But I have mentioned some questions for you. How is the current medical situation? What can you say about that? Because I don't know if I can trust the media here. What is the role of the government? What does Bolsonaro? What is his impact? What is his role? Are there any alternatives in the future? Are there any? I think there are demonstrations and so, and I think it's necessary to have demonstrations against this kind of politics. But what is the role, and what can you do against it? And inequality is an ongoing problem, not only but also in Brazil. What can be done? What do you think? Is there a chance? Is there a chance with Corona crisis that inequality is on the political program again, or is it even getting worse? I don't know. It's a question for you. And what do you think? What do you think about the pandemic? Could we deal with the Corona pandemic in the long run? Will it go away? Will it be part of our lives? And I don't know, but maybe you have some good ideas, some good arguments. So this would be great to discuss with you these things. And I hope you had some fruitful insights from my presentation, and we'll see in the discussion. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Dietmar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.